Hi, my name is Yishis, and I play a thief on the Blackgate server. Today I'll be sharing some celestial pistol dagger footage, as well as some traditional burst dagger footage. For those curious about my absence, I've been very busy with real life. However, Guild Wars remains the best game on my list, and I continue to play it, however passively. For more details on what I've been up to, as well as the specs that I'm running in this video, check the video description. Now in this first fight I'm engaged on by both a Mesmer and Elementalist. I immediately assume that the Mesmer is going to be the most dangerous, as well as the squishiest, so I target her first. As you can see, this build is not focused on strong burst damage, instead it's very strong sustained damage with a great mix between power and condition at once. The ranged component of the pistol is allowing me great access to keeping consistent damage on the Mesmer, and the Mesmer's clones and Elementalist on me is allowing me clear cloak and dagger re-stealths so I can continually keep the pressure up. As I get the Mesmer low, I steal in to daze her and prevent any attempt at a heal. I then immediately Shadow Refuge and get a stealth stomp off before the Elementalist can react. At this point, I am left to duel a fairly tanky Elementalist running Dagger. As she knocks me down, I immediately Shadow Step away to avoid her burst. At this point, I can continue to keep my distance and stay at medium range to stack up conditions and do great damage. As she gets close, I can use the number 3 ability to port back, gain more range, and get some excellent torment damage off as well. I notice the Ride the Lightning and evade away to avoid the burst, and then re-stealth as she's in melee range. She delays the fire burst and manages to get a good hit into me, however she knocks herself off. As I chase, my Blinding Powder on falling damage triggers, which grants me a free stealth and opener. However, as she cycles through water form, she's able to get a good amount of healing off and then chills me, so I'm forced to switch to shortbow and Shadow Step up to continue the chase. I throw a quick shortbow number 3 to get a cripple off and then continue the chase. However, she goes into mist form and prevents my burst. I go straight into a cluster bomb to get more burst while I'm on top of her and then switch back to dagger pistol to continue the duel. From here, I evade through her melee damage and then re-stealth. As she gets close to me again, I use my number 3 ability to port back and do strong power damage with more torment stacks. As she leaps at me, I use my Blinding Powder to prevent burst, however she times it well and still manages to get a knockdown off. At this point, I steal into her to daze her and interrupt, and then gain another re-stealth and continue the upfront damage pressure. I'm getting her quite low at this point and decide I need to take more risk and apply stronger pressure to take advantage of the low health before she attempts to fully heal again. I see that she's now cycled through her water form healing and is still at decently low health, so I continue the pressure as much as I can. As my steal comes off cooldown, I immediately chain it in for the daze and then number 3 to knock back further and do strong power damage to further drop her health. I mistime my evade and take a pretty strong fire burst from her, but do manage to get the final damage pressure in and take her down. As I go for the stomp, I know she'll mist form, and I see a thief trying to revive, so I open on him next. I make a move to cloak and dagger to re-stealth and then stomp, however the thief blinds me and then lays a huge condition burst, which shuts me down. I should have used Shadow Step to avoid the burst or at least clear the conditions. For the next fight, I've just completed agitating a large Zerg and pull from it 2 thieves that'll chase me down, and I'll have a great 1v2 with these thieves. The first thief, running Sword Dagger, opens with Basilisk Venom, and I immediately Shadow Step out of it and switch to Shortbow to get some ranged damage as the second thief enters the fight. As both thieves stealth, they have a clear opening shot on me, and I instead throw a Shadow Refuge so I can counter and get some good poison fields down to start the fight. I notice the Asura thief is running Dagger Pistol and assume this will be the better target since Sword Dagger tends to be more evasive overall. I get a Basilisk Venom off on him and start to get constant damage pressure into him. I re-stealth to avoid the Sword Dagger thief and then get another burst chain into the Dagger Pistol thief as he continues to re-stealth himself. A benefit of the pistol opener is that it's channeled, so as long as I start it before the thief stealths, it will get its full damage off even when the thief goes into stealth. Notice that I'm making aggressive use of my ranged capabilities to keep the thieves away from me and prevent the Sword Dagger thief from re-stealthing. Every time they get near, I'm either blinding or re-stealthing to prevent too much melee upfront damage, while continuing to keep constant pressure on the Asura thief. At this point, I have the Asura thief extremely low, so I use one more opener to get him down. Of course, the other thief immediately throws a Shadow Refuge, so I throw a few cluster bombs to agitate them. However, they reopen much sooner than I expected and catch me with a nasty burst chain that does a lot of damage, and I'm forced to Shadow Step out and Shadow Refuge to back off and regain health. At this point, they seem focused on my Shadow return point, so I put up a Basilisk Venom and open more slowly with a few poison fields to confuse them. I see a clear backshot opening on the thief and take it, making sure to project my pistols through my poison field for even more combo poison damage. The thief takes too much burst pressure from this and decides the Shadow Refuge as the second thief finally realizes where I am. I'm uneasy being out in the open unstealth, so I jump off to trigger my Blinding Powder on falling damage. This allows me to completely negate the Basilisk Venom that I just took. At this point, I fail to pan behind me and take a massive amount of burst damage from a Burst Guardian that randomly ports in. I try to move away in stealth so I can heal up but take a daze, so I have to pull out my short bow and continue to shadow step away and kite. My goal here is to move far enough away that I can get some good regen off in stealth and also separate the enemies and get a better reopening without all three of them on me at once. Luckily, I see that the Guardian has retreated and I immediately steal into the Asura Thief to interrupt his Heartseeker and gain a stealth. At this point, the Asura has re-stealthed and I decide to open on the Sword Dagger Thief just to see how squishy she is. The Asura reopens on me, but I use him as a cloak and dagger target and decide I'll stay on the Sword Dagger Thief as I'm doing pretty good damage to her. At this point, I know I've got the Sword Dagger Thief very low and I watch for her heal, I catch it, immediately steal to daze, and then use my number 3 to port back. I now have her extremely low, but take a Basilisk Venom from the Asura Thief. She goes into a Shadow Refuge and I switch to Shortbow and Cluster Bomb to keep damage pressure. She does go down, but the Asura Thief then uses his Shadow Refuge to complete a revive on her. I continue the pressure with Cluster Bombs and know that I have them both without Shadow Refuge now, so if I can do damage quickly, I'll be able to get a stomp without either of them stealthing to revive. I take a Basilisk Venom from the Sword Dagger Thief and shadow step away to break it. As I'm left out in the open, I immediately use my stolen ability to re-stealth and then get damage pressure back on the Asura Thief. I have him getting rather low, however I see that both thieves are closing in on me, so I heal up and gain a stealth and then get another opener into the thief. However, he shadow steps away, which cuts my burst short, so I re-stealth one more time. I then get one more opener in and get great damage on him, knowing that his low health blinding powder triggers. Unfortunately, at this point, I choke and use a cloak and dagger while blinded and then accidentally hit my number 3 ability, so I'm forced to Shadow Refuge as I ran myself low on initiative. While stealthed, I switch to my short bow and lay down Poison Fields to keep the damage pressure on these thieves and prevent them from healing since I've got them both at half health. I then put up a Basilisk Venom and open on the Asura Thief with Strong Burst. The Sword Thief opens on me, but I know I've got good pressure on the Asura Thief, so I use a Blinding Powder to delay the Sword Thief. The Asura drops a Shadow Refuge to try and escape, however he moves out of it and I'm able to get final damage pressure in to drop him. I go for a stomp, and the Sword Thief realizes the danger and throws another Shadow Refuge to prevent my stomp. Knowing how low they both are, I immediately switch to my short bow and drop a Poison Field and then continue to plink at them to keep their health low. As I can't swap weapons yet, I move in closer and immediately throw a Cluster Bomb to keep the damage up. I see that the Sword Dagger Thief is extremely low, so I steal in, gain the stolen ability in stealth, and then use one final opener to take her down. At this point, I'm going to move in for a stomp, and I have a Shadow Step available to complete the stomp even if the thief ports. As she moves away, I fire off my Shadow Step and gain a successful stomp. I re-stealth on the Asura to open on him, and at this point he's decided to completely run away, so I just chase with my short bow, and eventually he decides to jump off and kills himself. I think this clip ultimately does an excellent job demonstrating the great skirmishing ability of a Celestial Pistol Dagger Thief. While you can't hit and run, you have excellent sustained damage and also great sustained healing over time, which makes for great skirmishing fights. At this point, I'm now going to switch over and show a few clips with the more traditional Dagger burst build. First up, I find myself being engaged on by 2 warriors, both running heavy burst as well as a lot of crowd control with shield stun and hammer stuns. As you can see, I've already taken 1 knockdown in burst chain from them. In order to win this, I'm going to have to carefully watch for and time their crowd control abilities and look for an opening where I can damage them without as much fear of being controlled. However, again, I take a stun from the hammer and am forced to shadow step away to avoid their burst chain. As they move towards me, I shadow step back in stealth, then switch to my short bow and plink them to confuse them on my positioning and get some early damage in. As the Asura moves towards me, I attempt to evade, but fail to notice I don't have any endurance left, so unfortunately I again take another knockdown chain and am forced to throw my short bow number 3 to evade and then get a Shadow Refuge off to reset and avoid their burst again. Notice as well that the Sylvari is running Axe, and his Eviscerate did a massive amount of damage to me there, so I'm going to have to be careful to avoid that as well. I make good use of my stealth to heal up and continue to plink them with Poison Fields to keep them confused and be ready to open on them with some poison already applied. I see the chance to open on the Asura Thief and take it, get some decent damage in, however as I steal in, I unfortunately again get locked into a crowd control chain and a burst chain, so I'm forced to Blinding Powder to back out. From here, I'm seeing that they've burned through most of their crowd control abilities though, so I'm getting more confidence that I can get good damage into this Asura and hopefully take him down before they can reopen burst on me. I see the Sylvari getting close to me and evade away while spinning to avoid his Eviscerate. As I backstab the Asura again, I see the Sylvari getting close and evade away to avoid his shield stun. I'm getting more confident that the Asura is the best target as he seems fairly squishy for a warrior, and I'm able to dance around him quite well to get backstabs off. I make full use of the locked animation from his sword adrenaline ability to get awesome damage into his back. He tries to retreat with his hammer stun ability, but I have him low enough and keep the pressure up to take him down. I then move in for a Shadow Step Stomp and carefully time it so that I Shadow Return right as his hammer gets near me so that I completely juke it, avoid the knockdown, and gain the stomp. At this point I'm left to 1v1 the Sylvari warrior, and I heal up and then reopen with a backstab on him. My Basilisk Venom lets me get some decent damage in, and I use the spin ability from the warrior to do more damage, and then manage to evade out of his shield stun. I continue with another backstab, and then he turns and tries to do a burst chain with his sword. However, I stealth and avoid most of it. I get another backstab, have him very low, try to finish with Heartseekers, but he goes immune, and I'm forced to retreat in stealth and drop a couple poison fields. As I keep the damage pressure up, I know my health is extremely low, and I expect an eviscerate, so I preemptively shortbow number 3 and manage to avoid it. Laying a final poison field, I switch over to my dagger and see an opportunity to backstab. Unfortunately, I miss it, try to re-stealth, but he evades through with his greatsword number 3. This time, I succeed in a backstab, get great damage pressure in, and throw a final Heartseeker to take him down. From here, I decide to go for a stealth finisher with a cool camera angle for a nice action shot. Next up, I'm going to take on a single glass warrior that, prior to this clip, had one-shot me and really had me nervous for getting anywhere near him. As the fight starts, he blocks and then goes for an eviscerate, so I blinding powder and manage to avoid it. I know he's cycled through most of his abilities in this weapon, so I get a little more damage in, but as he switches to greatsword, I retreat, take one whirlwind attack, which does a good amount of damage, and I switch over to shortbow and get some ranged pressure on him. I'm trying to make persistent use of my shortbow to keep poison on him and thus suppress his healing signet. He goes back into blocking and has the trait to reflect projectiles, so I evade away with shortbow number 3 and preemptively stealth and manage to avoid his eviscerate. However, he then whirlwinds into the wall and does a huge chunk of damage to me. Again, I lay a poison field and open with an arrow through it for the combo to keep more poison up and immobilize him. As he throws his greatsword, I make use of shortbow number 3 to evade away from it. He then reflects projectiles, so I heal to re-stealth. Next, I make two major mistakes. First, I go to backstab in melee, failing to notice he was immune, and then he follows with an eviscerate and I evade a split second too late, so I take over 10k in burst damage. These two mistakes force me to fully retreat. At this point, I want to make sure that the fight can still go on, so I turn back around, pull out my shortbow, and decide that I'm going to hit him from range and get him to come towards me, and I'll utilize some kiting tactics to get my health back. Right as I get near him, he goes into a block and starts to reflect, so I again back off to avoid taking more damage from myself. While I wait for him to move towards me, I pull up a Basilisk Venom and then get my heal off. From here, I expect that he'll try to move towards where he last saw me stealth, so I evade through his whirlwind and then reopen with my shortbow, getting good poison damage on him, evading away from the throw and also evading his charge. As he moves towards me, I'm low on initiative, so I decide to again preemptively stealth to avoid the upfront eviscerate burst that he can put out. However, even while stealth, I manage to stay in his auto attacks a little too long and still take a lot of damage. As he whirlwinds, I open with my shortbow to get a good immobilize and actually have him quite low. However, he intelligently uses line of sight of the hill to prevent my damage, and then I accidentally evade off, so I'm forced to heal and re-stealth, then move back to his high ground, which lets him heal quite a bit. As he moves back toward me, I drop a poison field hoping that he'll move into it. Instead, I steal into him, get decent damage in, put a Basilisk Venom up, and go for a final burst chain. I get pretty decent damage in, he then blocks and eviscerates, I expect the damage coming, evade away from it, stealth one more time, and get a final combo to take him down, and then complete with a Shadow Step Stomp to finish him off. Finally, I'm going to close out with some less organized players and some good fun outnumbered killing. I open up on a Necromancer and quickly find that there's an Engineer and Elementalist coming up right behind him that will engage me as well. At this point, I want to get really quick high burst damage into the Necromancer to finish him off before the other two players can react. I get him down and do a Shadow Step Stomp to guarantee the kill before the other enemies can make it to help. Next, I decide to target the Elementalist, as both of these targets will be fairly tanky. Luckily, I find that the Elementalist actually is pretty squishy, and a couple of good backstabs and a little bit of auto attack takes him down pretty quickly, and the Engineer isn't able to do much to react. As I go for a stomp, I expect the mist form, and the Engineer intelligently drops a big old bomb to try and prevent me. I move strategically out of the way of the big old bomb and complete the stomp. At this point, the Engineer decides that he's going to move back with rocket boots, and I think he's trying to kite back towards the guard. However, he does decide at this point to do a little bit of damage to me, but then continues to try and retreat. I steal in to get a bit of a cluster bomb burst, but then he continues to move back towards the guards near the main keep. I push up further, and once he's closer to the stairs, he decides he's going to turn on me, and I use this as a final chance to turn around and get burst damage into him and take him down. I want to make sure that I can complete the kill on him, as I know I'm right near these enemies' spawns, and they're likely to come back very soon. I throw a Shadow Refuge and get the stomp, and as soon as I complete it, the Necromancer and Elementalist return, and I take a fear. I decide I'm going to open back up on the Necromancer and drop him yet again. However, I'd also really like to get a hold of the Necromancer's fear, so I throw away the Engineer's gunk, reopen again on the Necromancer, then steal up to him to get the fear. As I'm doing this, a warrior comes in and I also get knocked down, so I blinding powder to suppress the damage, then use the fear to interrupt the Necromancer, and then complete the kill with the Heartseeker. I manage to get the stomp, however at this point a large Zerg comes out of the keep, and unfortunately I have to retreat from here, so I'm going to move on to the next clip. Only a short little while later I end up fighting an Engineer and a Burst Ranger. As I open on the Engineer, I want to make sure I avoid his big old bomb. I stealth one more time and get a good backstab in. I then see that the Ranger is about to burst on me, so I throw the gunk and then immediately use Dagger Storm to reflect all of the projectiles and also combo inside of the gunk I had from the Engineer. From here, I move in to continue damage pressure on the Engineer and run right into a stealth trap as well as take an elite root from the Ranger. At this point, I'm sure the enemies had a good laugh at me, but I just know I need to escape as I can't stealth for 30 seconds. They get a massively long immobilize on me, and I actually think I have the movement bug, so I try to type /dance to break it. Regardless, I manage to escape with a Shadow Return, and then completely kite back and let the enemies chase me. Now, the revealed buff has dropped, and I can turn the tides on them at this new position. I decide I'm going to try my hand on the Ranger, as it seems the Engineer wants to hang out in the water. I get very good damage into her, try to re-stealth, but the Engineer blinds me, so I back off and heal to re-stealth. From here, I was satisfied with the amount of damage I was doing to the Ranger, and I get a great backstab in, and manage to fully take her down. I want to go for a Shadow Step Stomp to try and guarantee the kill quickly, however she manages to kill a River Drake and revives herself. This leaves me with little to no health at all, so I'm forced to use Shadow Refuge to fully escape, and from here I'm just going to use my Poison Fields to keep the damage on them and prevent them from regenerating health. I manage to catch the Ranger in a Poison Field and get awesome damage in and finish her off with a Cluster Bomb. At this point, I'm going to just go for a Stealth Stomp and gain it successfully and then chase down the Engineer. Soon after opening on the Engineer, he decides that he's going to rocket boot and kite back across the water, but I'm not going to let him get away as I don't really like being stealth trapped. As I exit the water, I use a blinding powder to suppress his damage and get a strong opening on him. He goes for a heal, and I use the time that he's doing this to get a safe Cloak and Dagger to re-stealth and a final backstab to take him down. So that completes the footage that I had for this video. I want to thank you all again for watching and your continued support. Unfortunately, I still can't guarantee any timeline on my videos. I just make them for fun, and I am still very busy with real life. However, I can guarantee that, at least in my opinion, Guild Wars 2 is still the best MMO on the market by far, and I hope you all are enjoying it as much as I continue to. As two final notes, I'd like to mention first that Team Riot is still alive and strong, and I recommend everybody check out Team Riot TV Twitch channel. Finally, I'd like to wish everybody in the upcoming Tournament of Legends 2 luck, and it should be an awesome time. Thanks.